down for this weekend. Perfect. Thank you, Larry. That was great. Well, welcome. Good morning. Welcome to everyone that is here, everyone that's in Facebook. We're in the middle of Mardi Gras. We're having a wonderful time. And Larry's pet Petunia has been out. People have seen that on Facebook. I know she's been out gad flying around with it. But so today I'm going to be talking about the season of nonviolence, and we're putting in Black History Month, and we're doing Science of Mind stuff, so it's kind of an eclectic talk, and I hope you enjoy it. In 1962, there was a yes that happened. The yes was in the world of music. The yes was in the field of broadcast technology. And 4 young men from England with long dark hair, which at the time was just absolutely unheard of, said yes to being on the Ed Sullivan Show. And that, of course, was the Beatles. The world has not been the same since. In 1969, there was a yes that happened between scientists and astronauts. And astronauts from this country walked on the moon. The world has not been the same since. In 1983, I walked through the doors of a Church of Religious Science, actually Divine Science, and my world has not been the same since. There were all these different things that are involved in a yes, a collective yes, or an individual yes. And today, I want to talk about this idea of the courage to dream, daring to dream. Now, it's in alignment with the Season for Nonviolence, which was, as Cheryl mentioned, founded by the Kandace Foundation. And Season for Nonviolence is based on the principles of Cesar Chavez, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and of course, Mahatma Gandhi. And it begins every year on the anniversary of Gandhi's assassination. And the last day is April 4th, the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And throughout that time, what's offered are practices to create a peaceful world, starting within, so that we might bring it without, starting within, so that we might carry it out here, starting within, so that that as we move into the world, we can be the power for good, that awareness of good, that awareness of love, that non-violent celebration of God, of spirit. So the courage to dream, daring to dream. I know it's interesting that Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote over 150 years ago that a hero is no braver than an ordinary man or woman, but is brave 5 minutes longer. So what does being brave have to do with pursuing a dream? And for that matter, why do dreams even matter? You know, some of us, in fact, many of us, might have grown up in homes where the family's main concern was just getting the bills paid, staying alive, escaping crime or violence. And the idea of pursuing a dream might have been taken as selfish or looked at as a luxury that no one had the time or the energy for. But there is common to all of us a dream of possibility. Even if we buried and ignored our impulses and our deep soul agreements for most of our lives, we still have that voice within us that will not be ignored or stilled. Now, Howard Thurman was a black man who was a minister and a teacher, and also a mentor for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I have read his material a lot, over and over again, because it just moves me so much. And this is a passage from an address he gave during the 1980 commencement at Spelman College. It's called The Sound of the Genuine. And he says, there is something within every one of you that waits, listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself. And if you cannot hear it, you will never find whatever it is for which you are searching. And if you hear it and then do not follow it, it is best that you had never been born. Now, I've read that passage many, many times before, and every time I read it, I get those truth bumps. We all know those. Because he also goes on to describe why we need to listen for the sound of the genuine. You are the only you that has ever lived. Your idiom is the only idiom of its kind in all of existence. And if you cannot hear the sound of the genuine in you, you will all your life spend your days on the ends of strings that somebody else pulls. That got me. Still does. Because how many of us are spending our lives in some sort of agreement, silent agreement, known or unknown agreement, that we keep other people comfortable, or that we keep other people appeased, or that we just go with the flow, the status quo, in order not to rock the boat or cause anyone else some sort of disruption or discomfort. Something to think about. So in December of 1945, in the hills of Egypt, discovered in a clay jar, there were these papyrus things that were just falling apart, and it's now what we call the Nag Hammadi Gospels. Nag Hammadi being the town in Egypt where these were found. And one of these texts in this book was the hidden gospel of Thomas. And it's what many scholars now study, because it's believed that these are the closest to the words of Jesus, the rabbi, the teacher. And that's what makes it even more profound, at least for me. And in there it says, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. Now, I know that seems a little dire, but if we consider the message of Jesus the teacher, and so many other teachers and leaders and philosophies and prophets, and those who have sought to give us a sense of more life and more possibility in this world, the idea is that the kingdom of heaven is within us. The infinite power of love, of peace, of presence, of intelligence, of possibility, of potentiality is not something we get from the people around us. They may energize us and inspire us to move into that field, but it is within us already. And to the degree that we are willing to know that and agree with it, and to acknowledge it and celebrate that, then we get to bring that forth, and we get to be in the kingdom of heaven. That joy, that magnificence. So heaven, not up here in a geographical location, and by the way, hell, not down here in some geographical location, but all within our own thinking. And if we don't bring forth this kingdom of heaven that's already in residence, seeking to inform us and to, as I like to say, define and divine us, if we don't bring that forth, then we live lives of such narrowness. And that gospel says it will destroy us. Because who? I mean, think about it. Who wants to live a life halfway lived? I don't. I don't want to live in that safety, in that boredom. You know, in this teaching, in our teaching of the science of mind, we seek to cultivate an awareness and to live in that all-encompassing awareness of the presence of God. We teach that it surrounds and fills us, that it permeates our very selves, our very being, and it informs who, what, and how we are. Again, to the degree that we're willing to believe and practice. Believing it and practicing it. Practicing believing it. See, because this is not an observable spirituality. It's a practicable spirituality. We can study it, but if we're not using it, then it's just kind of a nice mental exercise. But why don't we actually learn it and approach it with a sense of, wow, this is my path, this is my destiny, or this is my guidance, or this is my inspiration. I'm reminded of a story that my teacher, Dr. Walker, told me before he passed. And as some of you may know, I am a huge fan of Johnnie Coleman. Johnnie Coleman was a Black Unity minister. She was the first Black Unity minister to graduate. And this was in the 50s. And they made her live not in the village with all of them in Unity Village, but because she was Black, she had to live off campus. Now, she went on to found this huge community in Chicago, the biggest New Thought community in the world, actually. And she spoke one year at Asilomar, which was our annual conference. And it was really pretty funny, because she came up to the podium and she held up the Science of Mind textbook. And she said, "Have you all read this? Because it's really good. But from everything that I'm seeing and hearing, y'all don't know what's in this." And this was ministers and laymen and students all alike. But she read that room. She really read that room. And I know that David, my teacher, David Walker, loved that story because he was really on the same page with that. And I think it's so true. Because this is not an instant belief system or a get-rich kind of thing. In fact, our founder, Ernest Holmes, encouraged study and interrogation. Like, really look at this. Really look at it so you know that it works for you. He knew that a pearl of great price has only the value that we give it. And the price that we must pay is our attention and our intention. And he said this about those deep dreams that we hold in our heart and our souls. The sound of the genuine. He said, "Free yourself forever from the thought that God may be pleased by a life of sacrifice, that the world is any better because of your misery, and that righteousness is more perfectly expressed through poverty more than abundance. Know that the greater abundance of every good thing which you are bringing out in your life, the more perfectly you are satisfying the divine urge within you." So I ask you, what's your divine urge? What's the sound of your genuine? What is that that's calling you? Have you taken like a dream or a passion inventory lately? Have you checked it out lately? Because really, you know, our dreams evolve just as we do. And it might be that you're on the path of a dream that is no longer part of your contemporary self, your contemporary consciousness. See, everything changes. Our dreams change. They morph and they expand into wonderful possibilities if we let them. And the other thing about these dreams is, if we follow them and it's time for them to shift, they have everything necessary within them to guide us into that place of shift. So we can't go wrong. We can't make a mistake. If we trust and listen to that sound of the genuine within us, we get to move into this field of God, of Spirit. It's glorious. It's organized. It's perfect design. This field of God. We get to move into that. Not God up here who's keeping score, who's moody and capricious and has clearly fallen off his anger meds. But no, not a God of personality, a God of presence. So I think that often we don't listen to our dreams because we think we're not good enough, or our fear stands in the way of moving forward. We just get afraid. Now I gotta tell you that no dream is ever given to anyone fully formed. It just doesn't happen that way, but it does contain within it everything needed for the journey. In fact, I think the dream, the kingdom of heaven, is there in form. And as we embrace it, as we expand on this journey, we grow and we shift, and we can turn right or we can turn left, because all of it is still on the path of unfoldment, and it's perfect. So the thing is, you and I didn't arrive fully formed. We were born with all the physiology that we needed to grow and learn. But any level of mastery and accomplishment, be they biological, emotional, creative, or spiritual, happen little by little. Each little thing leading to the next little thing, right? So the fear that many of us hold is thinking, well, I have to be an expert now. If I want to be a painter, if I want to be an artist, or if I want to be an astronaut, a pianist, if I want to do whatever the thing is, I have to be an expert now. And here's what's really important to remember. God doesn't call the qualified. God qualifies the called. God doesn't call the qualified. God qualifies the called. So when you're hearing that voice, when you're hearing that dream, it's not because you're ready now. It's because now is the beginning of the journey. If you were ready now, it would be an entirely different voice, or an entirely different call, an entirely different dream. Now, thinking about when it comes to being afraid, I remember a quote from years ago that from Carlos Castaneda, and it really changed my relationship with fear. And he says, fear is like the blackbird that sits on your shoulder and tells you to be careful. And I remember thinking about that. Well, that's kind of adorable. You know, a little blackbird sitting on my shoulder, you know. And so I thought about it, and I think about it continuously. And okay, it sits on my shoulder, but it doesn't get to drive my bus. It can be a passenger on my bus in my life, but it doesn't get to navigate it. It can tell me to watch out for this over here and that over there. Be awake, be aware. It's the voice of intuition, but it does not get to be in charge of it all. See, the thing is, we live in this universe of total authenticity and integrity with itself. No physical law ever impedes or gets in the way of any other physical law. And no principle denies the existence and the integrity of any other principle. There's lessons in this. Because, you know, gravity doesn't argue with light. Gravity doesn't say, well, I matter more, so I'm going to do what I do, and there's no room for you, so shoo away, light. Light doesn't argue with Bernoulli's principle of flight. Light doesn't say, well, you know, I got to shine now, so we can't have any planes. Flight doesn't argue with electricity. It just doesn't. All these principles are. And when we live authentic lives of integrity and self-honesty, you and I just are. And actually, even when we don't, we just are. The integrity is still absolutely there. The integrity of God is still there. The perfection, that innate spiritual perfection, not the perfection of performance like we see in the Olympics, it's a different thing. The perfection that is spiritual, divine, creative, inspiring energy, that which holds the planets in their orbits and doesn't let them go careening into each other. See, gravity works, light works, it all works. And you and I have that same integrity within us. We are designed by that integrity, as that integrity. We are partakers of all of it. Our innate authenticity just is. Our divinity just is. Our integrity of God as God beings just is. So those urges and dreams are part of the necessary expression of God's authenticity and integrity. So the question begs, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Actually, what would you do even if you thought, well, I probably will fail, but I have to do it? And I think that's part of the big question that we look at. And so maybe the idea of dreams and courage is really about something else. Maybe it's not necessarily about the performance, but rather it's about the expression. Maybe it's about having the courage to listen to that voice and do it regardless. And for many of us, the courage to show up for ourselves is the hard one. And for me, what I know is when I do something out of my comfort zone, the courage doesn't happen first. The activity of doing of the thing that I am afraid of funds the courage. The courage doesn't come first. The desire, the dream comes first. There's an idea that I heard some time ago that I really resonate to. It's called live into your vision. Live into your vision. And it means you be that vision now. You be that dream now. You live in and as that in every part of your life now. And when your visions and your dreams are navigation systems, and when they're the navigation system, the path opens, and it opens wide. Is it easy? Nope. Is it comfortable? Absolutely not. But we're not here for ease or comfort. We're here to change the world. And remember, Emerson wrote this: God will not have its work done by cowards. Now, when I hear the word dream and courage, probably like you, I just keep thinking of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I just can't help it. I think of his I have a dream speech that he gave on August 28th, 1963. And those words are part of the fabric of this country. And yet, we still have a long way to go to realize them and really live into that vision, to own it for ourselves. The phrases resonate. He said, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And I have reread this text several times, and certainly during this week, because I wanted to unpack some of the deeper values that were in there. And I didn't remember this part where he said, let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to generate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. One with God is a majority. One with God. We have a long way to go, I think, before we really fully walk the talk about our oneness. But think about it. We are all here as God. And when we recognize that oneness, whoa, we can change the world. You know, there's an integrity of the human soul that calls for recognition and announcement. So part of walking that talk of oneness is that we have to be willing to be uncomfortable, to admit and acknowledge and be willing to embrace the idea that there are many, many people on the planet who have yet to experience full opportunity, education, justice, equanimity, and access. Gandhi lived in a service of a dream to free India, where all would live without fear of discrimination, poverty, violence, the caste system. And as he walked from province to spread his message of nonviolence, trying to model peace and urge nonviolence, he encountered and experienced almost every degradation imaginable. He was constantly threatened. His family was always in danger, and he did finally die from the bullets of an assassin. He didn't live to see a peaceful and safe India, but his dream fueled his passion and courage. God doesn't call the qualified. God qualifies the called. Our dreams qualify us. Our dreams qualify us. Regardless of what your perception or your belief in God is or of God, our dreams qualify us. They have everything there. They inspire, they teach, they lead us, and yes, they even crush us sometimes, but man, do they qualify us. And I'm again thinking about that quote. If you bring forth that which was within you, what you bring forth will save you. And if you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you. We have these precious lives. We've been given these precious, precious lives, and we're here for just a moment on this wonderful planet. So whether there is fear going on, or distraction, or whatever it is, your dreams qualify you. You are God. You are God. And I want to offer this quote that was given by Nelson Mandela, but originally from Marianne Wilson. I want to give this in closing. I know you've all heard it. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us the most. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. Step into those dreams. Live into those visions. Live as your dreams. Your dreams are waiting for you to come true. Will you say yes? And so it is. Thank you. Now, just for a moment, let's go together in consciousness for a minute, a little bit of a meditation, and then working right into the treatment. So I just ask you to close your eyes and turn your attention inward. In this field of yes, in this field of pure potentiality, there is a place. There is an absolute place of peace, of joy, of love. And perhaps this field lies between you and your dream. Perhaps this field seems to lie between oneness and separation. Perhaps this field lies between peace and violence. But in that field is that place where the oneness, the presence of God is. All that is known, all that is celebrated, all that is recognized. It's the truth of who and what we are. It is that field within each of us. Will you meet yourself there? Will you meet yourself there in that field and hear the sound of the genuine, the sound of the authentic self, your soul calling to you and inviting you to grow, grow, grow. Step into that field of possibility. For in that field, each of us, we are immersed in the absolute, overwhelming infinity that is God. And there is nothing else. There is no one else. It's just God. So I invite you to see yourself in that field. And let all boundaries between you and your dream dissolve. Let all boundaries between you and any healing which you are seeking dissolve. Let all boundaries dissolve. And any thoughts of separation, of violence, of anything less than that field of one power and one presence, infinite, infinite, omnipotent good that we call God. That field is the truth of each and every one of us. We are the celebration of God in that field. And we are here to dance together, because we are truly connected in and as God and with each other. And there can be nothing else but that, as we choose to know that that is so, that that is the truth. So where there appears to be disharmony, I know that God is active and present there. And where there appears to be physical limitation or a need of healing, I know that God is absolutely active and present there. And if there is someone close to you, family or friend, who appears to need something, whatever it is, I know that God is absolutely, fully active and present there. And if there is any situation in the world that is calling to you, whether it's a situation across the globe or in your neighborhood or your own home, I know that God, Spirit, divine intelligence is fully active and present there as limitless good. Man, what a yes we have been created into and as. So I know for each of us, we are the divine. We are all of that. We are that yes. And I'm grateful to know that it is so, and that this treatment is the demonstration. For in our recognition is the acceptance and the knowing. So with a full and grateful heart, I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.